Yes, good, that story. Welcome back to Pan-African Morning. Here's hoping you're having a fantastic one with us this morning. It's just gone after 8:30 a.m. I'm Audrey Chimwanda-Thwala, taking you through all the news and updates. Now, scenes of looting and stoning of shops played out at Berea in Durban as a group of people, apparently led by the members of Umkhonto weSizwe Military Veterans Association, intensified its campaign to move foreign nationals from those areas. Now, there are fears of the resurgence of attacks on foreign nationals after shops were looted. Some were forced to close, while others were stoned, allegedly by the group led by the members of MKMVA. Now, the members have been driving a campaign to have foreign nationals go back to their countries of origin, accusing them of taking the jobs of the locals and economic opportunities at the expense of the locals. Well, to help us understand what is going on is Mr. Carl Niehaus. He is the spokesperson and NEC member of the MKMVA. Carl, good morning. Thank you for coming through. What is happening in Durban?
Well, Audrey, I think first of all, I must emphasize that the MKMVA members who were part of this protest against undocumented foreigners, and I emphasize that part also, undocumented foreigners, were not taking part in looting. The looting that we saw must have been coming from other elements who were part of this protest. As far as we are concerned, it has to be a peaceful protest. It has to be a law-abiding protest, but at the same time, we want to emphasize that the current situation is not tenable. We cannot have large numbers of foreigners who are undocumented operating shops and businesses in South Africa while South Africans are going hungry, are unemployed, and many of our own people are in dire straits. So the situation is that MKMVA is acting here in a very constructive way as the eyes and ears also of our government, saying there are things that are wrong here. We cannot in any country, and it is true for many African countries, it is true for countries throughout the world, have undocumented people who are obviously, because they are undocumented, illegally here in South Africa, operating within our economy and taking jobs away from South Africans. Throughout the world, that is unacceptable, and surely it should also be unacceptable here in South Africa.
Granted, but some would ask, why now? This has been a perennial problem for the past almost a decade now. Why is the MKMVA only raising their voices now? Where have they been, the past couple of years that we've seen people complaining about this and going to the streets, taking the law into their own hands out of frustration of a government that they say is simply not listening to them? Why now?
Well, Audrey, first of all, it is not true that MKMVA has not raised this issue in the past. Secondly, we can see the tensions rising. And obviously, it is in the interest of our society that a structure which is disciplined, such as MKMVA, being led by former MK liberation fighters in a disciplined way, rather than in a situation that is chaotic and unacceptable and can spill over into foreign hate or xenophobia, which is not what we want. But we need to raise this issue. We've raised it in the past. The situation is getting intensely worse, and especially in the current circumstances after we've had the economic meltdown, partially also because of COVID-19. Our people are suffering immensely, and therefore MKMVA has a responsible role to play to raise this issue, to highlight that there are foreigners who are undocumented, and I must hasten to add, also to highlight some of the corruption within the Department of Home Affairs. Those issues has to be addressed, because obviously the Department of Home Affairs is not dealing with these matters as it should. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had this situation.
So wouldn't that be the natural or the more progressive position to start from, addressing what is happening with the Home Affairs? Because clearly those illegal foreign nationals would not be in the country if it wasn't for a flawed system. Mm-hmm. You say you're not in support of the looting and the violence that we saw happening there, but some would say perhaps you're encouraging anarchy if you haven't followed the structures of the government. And I'm sure you have some communication structures that you're supposed to follow to make sure that things are done in an orderly manner, because at the end of the day, what we see happening is a lot of violence, and the MKMVA's name being attached to that.
Well, first of all, we are not supporting any violence. Secondly, it is important to act with regards to the Department of Home Affairs, yes, but at the same time, it is important to act on the ground. And our members are going from shop to shop. They are requesting that people who are operating those businesses should show that they are properly documented. And it is their right to take the matter in a proper legal way forward by making civil arrests of those who are not properly documented, and to take them to the police stations to make sure that they can be dealt with.
Some analysts and critics have been saying that perhaps the MKMVA wants to render the Ramaphosa administration ungovernable by the actions that we're seeing in Durban. And I have to pose this question to you. How do you react to such analysis and critics?
Well, that is so off the mark, and that's why I was laughing. Because MKMVA is a disciplined organization as part of the African National Congress family. And you will recall that on the 18th of August, we had a major press conference where we expressed concerns about the functioning of the African National Congress and its NEC, but in a very constructive way. And it wasn't trying to make the current administration ungovernable or in any way not supporting it. In fact, all our actions, including this action, is to support our government and to make sure that our government functions better, that it is effective in terms of addressing the concerns and the needs of our people, and making sure that we can deal with serious issues that are being raised in our communities. And that is exactly what a formation such as MKMVA should be doing. Remember, we've got a long history of having fought for liberation in this country. We support the African National Congress as members of the African National Congress. And our duty is to make sure that the people of our country are properly serviced, in fact, get the services and the resources that they need, because that is what we fought for. So no, there is no such thing as wanting to make our government ungovernable. In fact, our only intention is to make our government function better and to deliver better to the people of South Africa.
So if any of the reactions that we've seen on social media, anything to go by, clearly what the movement, the MKMVA movement has organized on the ground has received quite a bit of support from the locals there. But would you confidently say you have the support of the ANC with these marches and protests that you're organizing in Durban? Have you communicated with them, and have they given you the go-ahead, and are they in support of what you're doing?
Look, we're constantly in discussion and engagement with our fellow ANC members. As I said, we're part of the ANC family. And yes, you can see the support that we've got. We can see the support that is there from a very large number of on-the-ground grassroots African National Congress supporters. So yes, we continue to engage with the African National Congress. We raise our concerns in a constructive way, and we make sure that we help the ANC, not just as the political party, the African National Congress, but also as the governing party, to be able to be sensitive to what is happening on the ground and to alert our leadership to the problems and the concerns of our people.
So the message out there is that the MKMVA, NC-affiliated MKMVA, is mobilizing people to close down shops of foreign nationals in Durban. Are you with that kind of narrative?
Now
and
let me make the narrative proper in terms of how we define it. Mm-hmm. No, we are not asking for shops of foreign nationals to be closed, full stop. We are saying that those foreign nationals that are illegal in South Africa and who are not documented, that those shops should be closed. And as I've indicated to you, our members of Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association, within their legal rights, can make civilian arrests of those who are clearly illegal, who are unable to present documentation of why they're in South Africa and that they have been processed. And those can be taken to any local police station and they should be arrested. Okay,
so now that you are confronting the symptoms of a bigger problem, of a system that is flawed, what now? What should happen going forward? What is the plan?
Well, obviously we need our government to address the issue of illegal foreigners who come into our country, who cross our borders, and who participate not just in our economy illegally, but often also participate in crime. It has to be done in a manner that is not xenophobic, but is law-abiding. So that is the message that we deliver to our government. And as you quite correctly pointed out in the earlier question that you asked me, obviously, a considerable part of the onus in making sure that this works properly and that these issues are addressed rests with the Department of Home Affairs, but of course also with our law enforcement agencies.
And a rather curious place to mobilize this protest, Durban, an area that is known to be prone to violence, and I'm sure you're aware of that, especially when it comes to issues of xenophobia. Why start this in Durban?
Well, it hasn't just started in Durban. I mean, there's concern that has been expressed by MKMVA nationally. Obviously, there has been an intensification of concern about this issue in the Durban and KwaZulu-Natal area. And I would say it is much better that the members of Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association take the lead in dealing with this issue and doing it in a controlled way. As I told you, we are absolutely insistent that it must be within the law.
So you concede what happened yesterday got out of control?
Of course,
I'm sure you saw the visuals.
Course. And as I said to you right at the beginning of this interview, MKMVA members were not participating in looting. And we condemn any looting, we condemn any destruction of property. But our intention is to have this campaign led by Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association to be run throughout the country. We're not just going to concentrate on KZN. This is going to be a national campaign. As you quite correctly pointed out, Audrey, this has been going on for a long time, far too long. It has to be addressed. It is not something which is strange and only something which would happen in South Africa. Everywhere in the world, the undocumented, illegal foreigners operating within the economy, taking jobs away from South African citizens in any nation, that would be unacceptable, and surely it is unacceptable here, especially in a country where we've got these deep levels of poverty and unemployment.
Going forward, what measures are you going to put in place to make sure that the criminal elements do not then invade this cause that you've started?
Well, we are engaging with our members to discuss how that can be done. We want to make sure that all future protests and actions that we take along the line of this program that I've just explained to you will be peaceful. So we will obviously also engage with the law enforcement agencies to make sure that criminal elements or anarchistic elements that want to jump on the bandwagon, so to speak, and abuse this program, which is a very legitimate program by MKMVA, will be taken firmly in hand, and that we will prevent this from happening.
Now, Carl, if you'll allow me to digress a bit, some of the other topical stories that we have here on Pan-African Morning, if you'll indulge me, what is happening with Bobby Wine, I'm sure you heard he got arrested. What is happening in Zimbabwe, there is oppression of press, media freedoms, with one of the journalists, Audrey Chimwanda, being arrested once again. The issue going back to liberation movements and how they seem to be falling out of favor, particularly in the urban areas. What is your comment around that?
Well, I didn't come for this interview to deal with those issues.
I know, this is why I asked you to indulge us, if you would.
Yeah, but I'm not going to indulge you, because the reason for that is very simple. The African National Congress is a responsible political liberation movement. It engages with fellow liberation movements in Southern Africa and in SADC. It is not for me to come and shoot off the hip on any of the issues that you may want to raise in that regard. There are channels of responsible engagement. As you will recall, not so long ago, the African National Congress, under a delegation led by the Secretary General of the ANC, engaged with ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe. And I think we should leave it at that level, because that is how the ANC operates, as a responsible party that is the governing party in South Africa, and of course always in the same context engaging with its former and continuing liberation movements in the rest of Southern Africa and in the rest of the world.
But isn't that, this kind of diplomacy, quiet diplomacy, that exacerbates the problems that we're seeing with liberation movements that continue to be in power, such as yourself not wanting to give an opinion or to really comment? Well, I understand that you want to follow the communication structures of the ANC, since you're a disciplined member of the African National Congress, but do you not think that at some point these things need to be confronted, and confronted head on?
Look, those issues, obviously, where they arise, have to be dealt with. But it's not for me, as an individual member of the ANC, Carl Niehaus, who sits here, who does not sit on the International Relations Subcommittee of the National Executive of the ANC, to talk about this. Because, unfortunately, an impression will be created that I'm now talking on behalf of the African National Congress, which I can't. So the ANC has to deal with these issues, and it is dealing with it within its formal structures. And as I've indicated to you, in the instance of Zimbabwe, that happened under the leadership of the Secretary General of the African National Congress.
Well, thank you, Mr. Niehaus, for indulging us, so certainly appreciating it, and really giving us a clearer picture of how the MK-MVA is on the ground, not only in Durban, but across the world, across the country, as you confront the issue of illegal foreign nationals that are occupying spaces that really should be for the local citizens. Carl Niehaus on the Green Couch here on Pan-African Morning, talking to us. We take a look once again at our headlines soon after the break, as we hit the top of the hour, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I beg your pardon, as we wrap up Pan-African Morning. Just stay with us. We'll be back after this.
Make massive moves.
How can you say that?
That is what it is.
Your mother eloped with someone else.
I just think this is such a genius idea. I think it's amazing.
I can be happy?
It's inside you. It's inside of all of us.
It's about cooking smart that are nutritious and delicious.
President Trump acknowledging the coronavirus death toll could be significantly higher.
We don't want to do this.
There is nothing you can take.
Surviving roommates scared.
The heavyweights arrive.
Inside finds Pachulia, blocked by Jane.
This is the will of God.
Make massive moves with STARSAT. Make massive moves.
I feel confident. I feel like I can take on the world.
You're telling a story through your clothes.
Such a professional, you wouldn't even know.
Criticism is one of my biggest motivations.
Darling, you want to be a model?
Like, oh my God.
I'm glistening.
The fashion industry needs people with beautiful faces.
I would pay thousands of dollars for that love.
Make massive moves with STARSAT.
It is a Pan-African morning indeed. A huge thank you to all our viewers that are engaging us on our social media platforms. Ntumba Wakamguni says is watching from the palm of his hand in the Free State, I suppose from his phone or from his laptop. Da Vinci Pele, all the best from Vryburg in the Northwest Province. Thank you for joining us, our Pan-African viewer there. And of course, Tapiwa Diamond Chajga, always with us every morning as we come to you bright and early here on Pan-African Morning. Audrey Chimwanda-Thwala will have a recap of our headlines once again in case you have missed them. The net is closing in on former Steinhoff executive Marcus Euster and foreign nationals' shops looted in Durban. And close to 400 corruption cases involving South African Police Service members are being investigated. And investigative Zimbabwean journalist Hopel Chingono is arrested again. Those are some of our top stories here on Pan-African Morning. For those stories in detail, you can always refer to our Facebook page. All of our programming will be there. You can watch those stories in detail from South Africa, across the continent, and our international news. From myself, Audrey Chimwanda-Thwala, and the amazing team behind the scenes that make this program possible every day, have a Pan-African morning. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place.